a lot of the goals that they wish to achieve from the attack may not be achievable because of the awareness and some of the actions and some of the movements of people like yourselves and others. With the invasion of Iraq in 2003, I knew there was no question in my mind, even though the largest protests in the history of our world were being conducted, I knew that that was not going to stop it. No way. It had been decided long before, and quite frankly, you know, the protests, as much as I encourage people to protest, that's the bare minimum. Protests alone, in my opinion, are actually counterproductive. They're counterproductive because the powers that be they're not bothered that much at all, really. They just lie about how many people go to the protests anyway. What we do as people, we go to a protest and we feel like we've gotten something out of our system. We feel like we've done our part, and then we can go home feeling a little bit better and sleeping a little bit sweeter at night, knowing that, well, hey, we're not amongst those who did nothing. The protests need to be combined with meaningful direct action. Anything short of that, in my opinion, is counterproductive. So back in 2003, I knew that the protests were not going to stop it, and I contemplated what might stop it, and I came up with a plan, the Human Shield Plan, that was based on some of the experiences and examples of others, like the siege of the Church of the Nativity a year before, in which several activists went into the Church of the Nativity and literally prevented a bloodbath, you know, because those white Western people being in there with the so-called terrorists, you know, the militants who fought back, that was literally what saved their lives. And you had the same thing at Yasser Arafat's compound. I know of people who've gone down to places like Nicaragua and El Salvador and lived in villages and whatnot. I mean, these are very courageous. Very courageous. Is not a you know, something to take lightly. So the Human Shield action was not something that I came up with, you know, completely on my own. It was by the example of others that I saw the power in this. And what I argued was very simple. According to international law, certain sites such as water treatment facilities and power plants are protected by the Fourth Geneva Convention because civilians, protected persons, are not to be targeted. And targeting these places is effectively targeting civilians, protected persons. So it's a war crime to hit these places. But the fact is that in war, and I know from the first Gulf War, that we attacked, we bombed those very sites all over the place throughout Iraq. Virtually all of them were hit. And it's part of a military strategy to really kind of marginalize and reduce the morale of your enemy to be able to have a swift takeover of the country. So you hit all these sites, and it's just part of a basic military strategy. So what I argued was that if we had enough people from the West, and I looked at a population of roughly 1 billion people in the West, and I thought to myself, is there 10,000 people out of 1 billion, a tiny, tiny fraction, is there 10,000 people who would consider really putting it on the line and going to Iraq and positioning ourselves at those sites which are supposed to be protected? I'll argue till the end of time. We can argue whether or not, you know, you could get 10,000 people, you know, fine. Okay, I'm not going to debate that. But what I think we cannot argue is this. If we had gotten 10,000 people, Western people primarily, and we had positioned ourselves at sites that cannot be regarded as anything but protected by the Fourth Geneva Convention, if we had done that, one of two things would have happened. One, they would have attacked, and they would have hit those sites. Or even if they wouldn't have hit those sites, you would have had 10,000 Western witnesses to see what was happening in the surrounding areas. Or they would have hit those sites and killed not only the Iraqis, but the human shields that were deployed at those sites. The bottom line is, if an attack would have occurred from the very beginning, with several thousand Western witnesses to bear witness, take pictures, and give their testimony, it would have been seen as for what it was from the very beginning, a massive war crime and a crime against humanity. So that would have been the one thing that would have been achieved, or the other thing that would have been achieved, which was my ultimate goal, which would be to make the invasion politically untenable and to stop it. And if we would have achieved that, there would be 1 million more plus Iraqis alive today. Never mind the maimed, never mind the orphans, never mind the refugees. I think, and I believe, and I stand by it to this day, if we, the West, had gotten 10,000 people, we could have stopped that invasion. And we could have, even more important than that, we could have established the point that's really just begging to be made in this world, that's just waiting to be made, the final manifestation of what humanity is, and that is that we, people of conscience, not even hundreds of millions, not even millions, those of us with a conscience, which surely is more than 10,000, it surely must be at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not even tens of millions perhaps, but people of conscience, whether we're a minority or not, we are a minority, we have the power, if we're intelligent, through direct action, to motivate the changing of our world for the better, to affect a better world. I stand by that. I live by that. The flotilla is an example of that. Human Shields could have been that, but it was infiltrated. To get deeper into it, it was infiltrated because I failed to get people around me who I could trust, who bought into a very logical, straightforward, and well-articulated plan. I didn't write that plan. I didn't get those people around me. And as it turned out, I had to take people at face value. Among those people that came and said they were friends of the cause, they were infiltrators. They subverted it from the inside. The damage caused on the inside was far worse than the outside damage, and we failed to achieve our mission. There were 100 Human Shields in Baghdad at the time of the invasion, and they did protect 6 sites during shock and awe. None of those sites were hit while Human Shields were there. Only after the Human Shields left, about a month later, did they get hit. And that meant a lot to the people of Baghdad. I can tell you, a mother who needs to provide clean drinking water to their to a child, it meant something to them. But that's lost in the annals of history because the conquerors are the ones that write the history books. And 100 Human Shields was not enough. But I've understood for many, many years. If we want a better world, it's there. It's just waiting for us to take it. But we've got to realize we have that power.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from with that. Like it's nothing but sense as far as I can see.
Yeah, but back on the issue of what you were saying, part of the problem with getting so many people motivated and moved to do something about this is they sit back and watch it on the TV almost like it's a soap unfolding in front of them, and it's like it's distant. It's not something that they realise it's happening here on this planet that we all share. It's something separate and to be watched on a TV screen, and that's the power that the TV has over the minds of the masses, and they really need to we need to shake up,
Fundamentally, the people that are awake realise that instead of observing the world, they need to start living. And as soon as you start actually living, then you're faced with moral decisions. And one of the moral decisions is whether you're going to stand by and let this sort of thing go on, or whether you're going to stand with your brothers and sisters and say, no, it's not good enough. This isn't how things need to be. It's...
Yeah, I mean, just to expand on that, I mean, let us look at what happened with, let's say a total investment of maybe, $3 or $4 million, and involvement of about 700 people on the flotilla. I mean, when we think about it, that's a very small amount of resources. Of course, you had people in support and whatnot, but look what that achieved. I mean, it's significant. I mean, all of us in this conversation know full well that those that have extreme power in this world right now, who are exercising it, one of the linchpins of their policy in this world of the New World Order agenda is the occupation and subjugation of the Palestinian people to terrible crimes, to maintain a continual state of conflict, perpetual conflict, and the last thing they want is for justice to be served in Palestine. And what we've done through the flotilla is create serious cracks in those policies, major cracks that we can exploit further. And we're talking about a relatively small amount of resources. So again, what the masses are doing, watching American Idol and X Factor and Big Brother and all this kind of stuff, to be honest, it's not really all that relevant. Those people will come. They will come. They're not going to be the instigators. They're going to follow. And if you create catalyzing events, paradigm-shifting events, like, for instance, the flotilla, or increase it even further with the next flotilla being bigger, stronger, even more intelligent, believe me, the people will come. You know, they don't wait for the masses to come on board. Create the incidents that bring the masses. They'll always be there. You know, don't worry about them. And that's what I'm focused on, is connecting with people that are serious about affecting a better world and realize they have a role in that.
Another issue with all of this is basically the soldiers who were going to fight these wars following orders based purely on lies. I mean, the way these soldiers are trained, I mean, how do we reach the soldiers as well to say, you know, what? I mean, you yourself were a soldier. You've seen the light, and you've stopped. You know, you left the army, and you burned your American citizenship. There are a few other soldiers. There were videos on YouTube where soldiers have spoke out against these wars, knowing that the wars against humanity and essentially the wars against peace. But would there be a way, do you think, to reach more soldiers to say, you know, at the end of the day, you might receive the orders, but you are the ones fighting the war?
Yeah, I mean, obviously anything we can do to support those that maybe have some doubts or you know, concerns about what they're doing, of course we should continue to do that. But again, you know, being an ex-Marine and being called a hero as a Gulf War veteran, I can understand where the soldiers are coming from. A lot of them, you know, the biggest praise they've ever had in their lives is coming from the status they get from being a soldier. And, you know, you come home, you're a hero, you know, and there are these perks that a lot of people in our society provide to you for having that role. And, you know, so it's understandable that, you know, you have these war memorials. You know, there's never enough war memorials, man. They're everywhere, you know. You've even got a war memorial to animals in war. I mean, it's you know, it's just really glorified in every way. So, you know, we can't really change that by any other way, in my opinion, than leading by example. Set the example, people will come. You know, don't worry too much about what other people are doing. You know, it's not really possible, as you say, to reach all of them, because the propaganda machine, as it is very effective. It's losing a lot of its effectiveness. It is. Unprecedented numbers of people are going to the internet, to so-called alternative news, to be able to get something different, because they're becoming more and more dissatisfied with what even the masses are beginning to see as propaganda. So, I mean, that's quite significant. But, you know, what is most important is not what other people are doing. It's what we do, people of conscience. I'll keep coming back to that over and over and over again. Other people will come. Most people are followers. That's just the truth of the matter. And, you know, it's simple to understand that. Those of us that actually have a conscience and really, really feel compelled to do something about it, if our true numbers are, you know, 10,000 or 5,000 or 100,000, I mean, that's enough. If we ever got together, I mean, it's just amazing what we could achieve. You know, this is the biggest obstacle, is not any exterior thing. It's inside of our own head. It really is. I'm not kidding. When I laugh, I'm really laughing, because I have no doubt at all that we could have a better world. All of the problems that people can see, you know, the racism in the world, as an example, in one generation, we could solve all of our problems. But unfortunately, the children are being hand-fed a bunch of crap, you know, indoctrinated in the schools, you know, separated. My child was born a couple months early. The first thing they do, the doctors do, is they cut the umbilical cord and they take the baby into another room and separate the mom from the baby. I mean, these are supposed to be people, trained doctors who would know about human health, and they are so indoctrinated that they don't even get that the most important thing that a baby needs when it's born is its mother. I mean, how simple is that? And, you know, if you give a child love and you provide security for a child, I don't care where you are. You know, if you provide love and security and you nurture that child, I swear we'd solve all our problems in one generation. But sadly, we are indoctrinated. So what we have to do is lead by example.